On that one.
It's probably out on the website.
Okay. But you can
Is
go
that
in and vote
booked?
right now. Yeah, we're going to.
Yeah.
Is that something we don't?
When are you going?
We leave on May 31st.
Where you going?
Going to Iceland.
Oh, on a tour or by yourself?
We're going on a cruise, so we kind of go by yourself. You know, you
Okay,
decide your trip
nice.
once you get up
How long is the?
there. It's 12 days on the boat. Then we're spending some time in Amsterdam after. It's well, 2 days before and 3 or 4 days after.
Okay.
Yeah, Scotland. It goes from Amsterdam to Scotland. There's 2 ports of Scotland, then Iceland, and then go back to Scotland and Amsterdam.
Now, is this warm time in Iceland or what is it?
It's warmer. I think it'll be like when we went on to Alaska cruise. You know, they say 50s to 60s, 40s to 60s. So, but Iceland, I think, you know, when you look at, you've been watching videos and there's nothing to stop the wind. It's very
Yeah.
windy there.
Feel like at home.
Just like at home.
You should be used to it.
Yeah.
I was talking to 2 people that just moved to South Dakota and they said to me,
Get started.
what is
I
this
just saw
story?
Ryan walking.
Like, when there?
Yeah.
When you use these microphones, you have to hold this up. There's on the backside a little power button. Just try not to hit that.
Not 2 or 2?
It should be on now. The green light should be on. But it's just naturally how you would hold it. It's right where that power button
Okay.
is.
How long do they stay charged? That's pretty good.
Oh, I just charged them, so they should be good for our meeting.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
No. Oh, there it is.
Hi.
Dan's been in Brainerd all week, last week. He went up there for a week. So we're meeting him in Sioux Falls tonight because our grandson's in Greece. So this was the night we could all go. So we're all going to Greece. The musical.
Musical
Oh,
Greece.
musical is that.
That's
You're
okay.
going to Greece?
No, it's musical Greece at Roosevelt High School.
Oh,
We're going to that.
Okay.
That's fun though. That's a good.
Yeah, I like that one too,
Yeah,
so.
that'll be a good
Oh,
I missed the memo.
it was on the email last Friday that I sent because of absentee
Because
voting.
of absentee voting.
Did you go vote?
I showed up. I'm like, oh, I'm in the place.
On your own here, Doug.
Yeah, this is kind of a wee day. though. I'm not sure this is shaping up.
We'll just have
Just cheat.
Me day. Me day.
We'll probably do it in our groups anyway.
Oh, yeah. I think Brian's coming back. If he is, then I won't be alone up here. so. We'll wait for him to get back.
Don't take it first.
Hey, will not.
Otherwise you-
You're good. Well, I want to appreciate and go ahead and get started just out of respect for everybody's time. Thank you for finding your way here with the change in venue due to the absentee voting getting started or the voting getting started. And a little bit different time because I'm not sure how long our discussions will go today. So I wanted to make certain that we didn't have to get cut off. Just a reminder, again, these are public meetings. So Bill or shared microphone will pass around so that the broadcast people can hear you. I do want to welcome Brian. Brian is now an official member of the committee. He's taking Patty V's place.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Officially. So as Patty Barnes, who is finding it challenging to make meetings. So, so we appreciate Brian, who has attended meetings in the past and still gives us that department representation. And then Paul had a conflict and so couldn't be here.
Patty
Today.
H on this too, Wyman?
She is. Yep. So, and she was aware of it. And John Marquardt. What else we're missing?
Just pull it up.
Okay, good. Since he has the first agenda item. Glad to hear that. So we'll just pause for a moment and we'll wait for John to join us. Yes. The planner calendar meeting. Yeah, I can just say that I'll work with Patty. I do want to talk about future meetings after our subcommittee discussion, which I think will be the bulk of this.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
Now Doug's alone again. I don't know, maybe there is something
I
for.
feel like I should turn my chair around.
I appreciate that selfishly. I run so many meetings every day. Yeah, this is like my Zoom call today. It gets to be
Right.
more after a while.
Yep, I'll talk with
I
Patty.
hate this and stuff. Not being right, so it's.
Hey, John.
He's feeling left out.
He's ignoring you.
He's ignoring you.
I'm not, I just glad that I made it here. I did. That's all right. I wouldn't show up to vote.
So, anyway, welcome. Introduce from the rest group, Brian, now official part of the group, taking Patty's, Barbara's position. And we'll add others if we need to during the course of the discussion. So, wanted to start this discussion with feedback from the commission in terms of the charter that we had approved at our last, not the combined meeting, but the last meeting of this group that outlined what it was that we think our charge is from the commission. And John, I don't know if you want to comment on that at all, or Ryan, if there are tweaks to that, or if it's been approved, or where that's at.
It's not been approved yet, but I think from what I've seen of it, it's basically mirroring what Minnehaha County did. And I don't see where we need to change anything there, other than if there's a name or something in there that we want to.
Yeah, I think there were a couple of minor tweaks. The one that I added in there that they didn't have was that I want to make certain that we don't create a we they between the commission and the department heads.
Yeah.
I don't know that it exists now. I'm not inferring that, but we certainly don't want to create that kind of different perspective, because we need the department heads as we go through this process. And that's why we have people attending these meetings representing the departments. And there may be others as we get into this further that we need to have come and share more of their expertise within their particular area.
I think, that we can go ahead and put that on the agenda for our next meeting to get it to the commission.
So should I talk to Patty about that, or will you talk to Patty about her?
You go ahead and make sure that it gets on the agenda to approve the financial advisory committee charter.
Right. And the meeting planner. Okay. Any other comments or discussion about the charter? Then wanted to at least have some conversation about the meeting that we held jointly with the Strategic Planning Committee and with Jeff Schaefer from Legislative Audit. Some of us have had individual or small group conversations since then, but we haven't, as a committee, had any discussions there to either any feedback, or especially things that are of concern or interest that you think can be pointed out we need to do a deeper dive on, or make certain that we include in our work going forward. Thoughts from anyone?
Yeah, I have some thoughts. Jeff was 100% correct last year when he told us the county has to cut spending or we'll run out of money year or two. Those comments were based on the county's level of spending 2022 to 2025. what I have not really heard acknowledged at these meetings is that following his assessment, county commission made 3.7 million in cuts. Our 2026 budget is 3.7 million smaller than our 2025 budget. And I just think, when you take a reduction like that, I'll just specifically tell you what they were. They reduced the general fund budget from 16.6 to 14.5 million. Reduced the road budget from 7.2 to 5.5, a 15.6% cut, pretty significant. And they also eliminated all step increases for all employees. These are major readjustments that I think are going to go a long way towards solving the imbalance that Mr. Schaefer pointed out. Was it enough to put us back in the black? Too early to tell. And I just think we need to let that sharply reduced budget play out in before we'll go really even sharper cuts need to be made.
I appreciate that. And I think that ties into as well the cash carryover at the end of the year topic. Well, so we'll add that into some of our committee discussions that we'll have here today. But appreciate those points. Those are 2.7 million and significant reduction.
Yeah, I don't know if we've ever had a bigger cut in 1 year. Of course, you know how we got there, it was COVID dollars. From 2022 to 2025, we increased our highway budget 48%. And that's because we wanted to the American Rescue Plan funds, excuse me.
Turn it off. That might have happened. Is there a green light on it?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think, in my opinion, our highway budget was increased 48% during those 4 years from 2022 to 2025. And unfortunately, I think that went on about a year too long in relation to the actual amount of COVID dollars we received. And that's one of the factors that put us in the red, which Jeff Schaefer pointed out, that we actually spend as if we had more COVID dollars than we received. There's a couple other factors, but that's a big one.
I think the one thing that we did a drastic cut this year for on the budget. And I think Ryan pointed out a year ago probably that we actually have to watch that we're not cutting too much, because then that affects our budget for upcoming years. It's kind of a 6 1 half dozen the other, where you need to cut, but yet you don't want to cut too much, because then that cuts us off for future references too. And so, yes, we made a drastic cut this year, but we have to watch ourselves moving forward. And that's why I wanted people like you to get involved to assist us, because I'm not a budgeter and I don't care that much for budgets, but I know that we have to follow them. I mean, so
Yeah,
that's just my 2 cents worth.
to explain that a little bit is that, and I've seen this in federal government as well. I've seen this in federal government agencies as well. Essentially, we have a budget cap and says that our budget can't move past a certain point. We can only increase it so much. So in really high inflation years, we can't keep up with inflation. In low inflation years, it may seem like, oh, we shouldn't be increasing our budget, but then because we have this cap, we have to it almost encourages us to always maximize our caps so that we're always prepared for the high inflation years. And so it's a crazy symptom of the runaway spending of government a little bit. It encourages high budgets or maximizing your budget because you don't know if you're going to lose it. So that's the weird thing about the budget. At the end of the day, though, what really matters is the expenditures, because our budget drives our revenue, but our expenditures and revenue is what really matters at the end of the day. And so it's a weird thing. It's like, that's why it's not quite like a business. Your budget doesn't drive your revenue. Your revenue drives your budget, or your previous revenues drive your budget. And it's kind of reversed with when you're collecting taxes and relying on taxes.
Thing I would add to it. You're always looking at how can you add additional revenue. limited rather significantly at the county level with that. So,
Question for clarification, and I don't know what Yankton County got for COVID, but Brian, you had said it was to replace your general fund dollars. So when that money came in, and then to reflect to what Brian said, that following year, you had inflation, everything else that was going on, and those dollars were no longer there. So did you go back to your previous budget, whatever you set, and base your next budget on, you know what, because when the dollars went away, it was only what was for that budget, because that's what you were budgeting. When those dollars went away, then what did you have in the general fund to replace those dollars? Did you have the same amount, but you have to figure in inflation would be the increase in what you needed? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, what's fair to say is that we should have reduced the budget a year earlier. And I don't want to give, unless you want them, I have some pretty eye-opening examples of a couple of department budget increases that really stood out. And there are a couple of young first-term department heads probably don't realize we have limits, the amount of revenue we can collect each year, state-imposed limits. You know, our income's only going to go up 4 or 5% a year. So if you have departments increasing 10, 15% a year for multiple years, that causes issues. And so I just think the county commissioners need to say no to those types of increases going forward and not approve any budget increases greater than 4 or 5% due to our revenue limitations. That's what we did when I was on the commission, and that simple rule kept us in the black. Doug, can I address something you said at the last meeting? This has to do with when Jeff Schaefer brought up, do we get any city funding for the ambulance? And I heard you say what I've heard so many city commissioners say, which is, no, we pay county taxes for that. Every Class A city in the state, every resident of those cities pays county taxes. And those are for the statutorily required services that counties have to provide. Elections, judicial system, auditor, treasurer, state's attorney, public defender, court-appointed attorney, director of equalization, register of deeds, veteran service officer, sheriff, county jail, juvenile detention. There's several more, but anyway, those are what the city residents are paying county taxes for. In the other cities,
that's what everyone's saying.
right, but I'm saying those other cities don't use that as an excuse not to contribute to the ambulance service, because the ambulance service is not a county mandated service. It's something we inherited. I have a little interesting history that maybe a few of you will know this, but the city used to participate in the cost of the ambulance up until 2019. And what they would do is there's a couple of rooms on the first floor of City Hall where our ambulance staff was located. And we had a couple of parking stalls that we double decked our ambulances in right next to those rooms. So they housed it. That was their contribution. And then when we decided that space was too small, we found an existing building and renovated it. At that point, the city said, we're not participating in any of that housing cost anymore. And then they started giving us this, well, we pay county taxes, that should cover it. The county taxes cover the mandated services. That's not a mandated service, it's something we've just inherited.
There's two things, if you recall my comment, was the argument that I hear from citizens of Yankton is that they shouldn't have to pay twice. Pay for a service that others in the county aren't.
I tried to articulate, I don't know if I did, as to why I don't think that really washes. I hear from city commissioners, city managers every year that same excuse. To me, it doesn't make sense.
Others?
And I think that it's true, and the city residents, owner occupied, and that they do pay property taxes just like people in the county do. But what about all the renters and the apartments and that don't pay? And there's a certain percentage of the calls that the ambulance makes that are people that live in apartments, elderly people that live in apartments that, sure, but through their rent, they're paying tax, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're paying the same amount of property taxes as we are for that service. So
I guess on that point, I would respectfully disagree. If I'm as a landowner and a landlord, if you will, if I get an increase in taxes, I'm going to direct pass that on to the consumer through higher prices. I mean, it's going to be a direct pass through because I'm not going to cut my budgets that I set to run my family and run my business are based on X amount of profit. So if I get hit with a $200 a month tax increase, I'm going to straight pass that right on through. So yes, they may not be writing that check per se like we do, having today being April 30th, having to write out the checks, make sure our property taxes are paid. Got done doing that exercise this morning. It is just a straight pass through for most business owners. And went down in the weeds a little bit on one issue, which is okay because that's a significant cost for the county and it's a non-mandated service, but a service that's needed in the region.
Yeah, it's something I hope to see one of our task forces put into their recommendations.
Well, maybe that, before we leave the discussion on feedback from the meeting with Jeff Schaefer, I want to tie that into our subcommittee discussion. But before we leave the joint meeting that we had, any other items that you want to make certain are on the list, I guess, for follow-up? Okay.
From the county commission side of it, I don't know what we're trying to achieve.
No, I have some thoughts when we get to my subcommittee, but
Yeah, I think I'm ready to.
Okay. This is my take, and I've had some individual discussions with some of you, and we don't have it labeled maybe that way on the agenda, but to start to drill down on some different areas. I kind of see some different buckets. One is financial reporting, with Jolene and Catherine, been working with Patty on that for some time. That might, I say might, this decision hasn't been made, but might change the information that gets, that gets reported both to the commission, but also to the departments as well. So some things that are churning in the background with that. And that's why I had the two of you on that subcommittee, because you're already well underway there. And then policies and procedures, and I think you could probably put education or orientation under this one as well. As Brian pointed out in one of our previous meetings, there's some information that gets provided, but we also have, sometimes we have new department leaders that come in or commissioners that come in who have a lot of familiarity, a lot of experience. And sometimes you have people that are completely new. And so, and how much information do you absorb all at once, kind of thing. So I think maybe we can help with that by implementing or proposing some policies and procedures beyond what is required in state statutes. One example I would give would just be on capital. So right now, I think things that cost over $50,000, Patty, they come back to the commission because that's the statute level. As I've had some conversations with a couple of other folks, Minnehaha County, for example, it's $25,000. Even if it's in the budget, it's approved. If it's at $25,000, it comes back to the commission just to make certain, well, are the revenues coming in? Because the budget's a plan. That's all it is. It's a plan. So things going according to plan so that we can make that $25,000 expenditure or not. And it's a good touch point then between the department and the commission to say, how are things going? Both overall, but also within your respective departments. So that would be one example. And I don't know that we have to reinvent the wheel. I think counties will be willing to share those with us, and we can figure out what are the policies that we want to implement in Yankton County, and how do you want to tweak them? Because what they do in Minnehaha or Davidson or wherever else may not be exactly what we want or need here.
I think it's planned to buy that item in that department. So that is in the budget
Correct.
for you. And when
all the other departments do their budgets, they don't look at their they don't look at their revenue. I'm the only one that budgets the revenue and the commissioners will pay it. So they're planning on buying that. So to me, I would think that they would be able to buy that.
Yeah, and
And not say, oh, we didn't get any money for that this year, so you can't buy it. That's, that's not the way, I think we should do it.
and I appreciate that, Patty. What I will say is not all counties are that way. There are counties, even as big as Minnehaha County is, if it's 25,000 or more, it comes back, and I think it's a bigger number for construction or renovation projects.
I'm not saying that.
So,
I mean, they should go to the board if they're spending that much money.
Yeah, and it is a formal approval requirement.
No,
And that's the type of thing, as we start to pull together policies and procedures, that we'll have to figure out, what does that mean? Because again, we're not a decision-making body. We'll make recommendations. But we want things, as we talked about at our first meeting, that help you as directors of your departments as well as the commission. But the commission's also got to look at the overall cash flow for the county as well, and how things are working there. And if you're nervous or concerned about that, then it gets in. It's better to have these conversations now than when you don't have the dollars and you're choosing between paying this or paying that. So collectively, we've got to figure that out.
And one thing that can occur, we got to budget it for a new dump truck next year, whatever. And the manufacturer doesn't get it done a certain time frame. And obviously we got the money for April and in November. And if that truck's not going to be done until January 1, we're going to have the cash at that time to write up the truck.
Well, or a maintainer just craps out and you don't have the luxury of waiting until next year's budget. Now you got to switch. So. Sure. So anyway, item for further discussion, but that as an example, that there are counties who say, Brian might have that new whatever XYZ thing in his budget. It's approved in the budget, but it's cost $30,000. And before he can go commit to buying that, it's got to come back to the commission. So now, unless the commission says, we don't want to be bothered by it, we approved it in the budget, he can buy it any time in that 12-month period.
And by the way, all bills every 2 weeks, they have not paid any bills at that point. They can stop payment. At that point.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, policies and procedures would be one area potential. The thing I would point out though is probably neither of those areas are going to be big money savers. It's really does it help the process and help the monitoring to ensure that departments and commission taxpayers are all on the same page with what gets reported publicly. And I think as taxpayers, we expect that's going to happen. Again, not inferring it's not now, but can we make it better than what it is? And some of the conversations, topics that Brian has brought up, where we do have some data that's available. We don't want to compare ourselves with Minnehaha, probably not Lincoln or Pennington, but what I would describe as the ESD counties more in line, and maybe not all of those. Maybe Brown is too big for us. I don't know, but to start to look at that, Brian, you had some overall things, and so.
My suggestion, and they will expand it a little bit, my suggestion would simply be the 5 counties between 20 and 30,000. It's 5 counties. That's the closest you'll get to an apples to apples, example. If you want to add a couple below that, a couple above that, that's fine, but that's not exactly apples to apples, if that's right. So the five I'm talking about would be Mitchell, Davison County, Watertown, Cottington County, Deadwood, Lawrence County, Sturgis, Meade County, and Yankton County. Those are the five between 20 and 30,000. You could add Brown County, they're the next biggest, but they're 37,000.
Yeah, so it's a pretty big jump from where we
It's
are.
okay, you know, but I'm just saying, when we look at their numbers, if they have two more staff than we do in a particular office, that'll be understandable.
Okay.
So maybe those six then, Davison, Yankton, Cottington, Lawrence, Meade, and Brown.
I'm fine with that, and I would
So we're
actually,
giving out the four biggest, and everybody in the teens.
Just a question, are you using demographics and population as the basis for the comparison? Because at the level of, is there anything else when you're doing a comparison that other counties might be doing that could impact? I mean, and I don't know, but let's say juvenile detention, I'm not only saying that because that's a topic here, but I don't know if those others are doing, because I think you've got, I mean, if you're trying to do, if you just do it on population, is that the only data point you want to look at as a comparison?
but I think, Gene, what I would see this is, let's do the department comparisons, those five and we're six compared with Yankton. Where do we have significant variances, either high or low? And maybe it's, well, we're paying for a lot of juvenile justice that somebody else isn't, or they're doing something different. So it can be explained, but,
I think you need
but it's a
access-
flag.
What data points you want to look at? as a
Sure.
comparison, because then have differences.
So obviously FTEs is something we want office by office, I suppose.
I think probably FTEs, expenditures, any revenues, because if they have their own juvenile justice facility and they've got revenue coming in to offset costs, that would be good to know, probably.
I mean,
Right.
Benefits too.
Oh, I
That's
wonder
gonna,
if that's,
that's gonna be a little more complicated for me to track. I can find all those other numbers in the Department of Legislative Audits and in some other sources, but I don't know about.
Well, if we,
benefits. I guess I could call those counties
I was just saying,
individually and get some basic benefits.
When you're talking about revenue, my office, treasurer's office, they do not, receive revenue. So you can go by what we expend to the revenue, because it just goes into the general fund. The only one that, probably is even track the revenue is the highway. That is a separate fund by itself. The general fund, that's,
But what about like the county jail? I mean, they have, there's income that's generated by the jail because they
Yep.
have the federal
it's
prison.
it's in the general fund,
But it's identified by a fee or a structure. I mean, there's a line item.
right under.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think what you were being like, if they have a juvenile center that they're charging for beds, that's a revenue source that we don't use right now, but maybe somebody else is.
yeah, but again, those things I think are explainable.
Mhm.
Doesn't mean we still might not want to drill down further on it, but at least it's a starting point that we have. We've talked before about doing maybe a 5-year comparison of each of the departments here, which tells us how they've changed, especially post-COVID dollars. But again, we don't know if that means you started in the right place. And we can't go undo any of that, but can we at least have the review process so that we can tell the taxpayers of Yankton County, hey, we've looked at all of these departments and they're in line with what Cottington, Meade, and Lawrence, was where we're at. Or we have some areas that are different, and is that explainable and reasonable? Or is it an area that needs further discussion?
Patty, the COVID dollars, we can tie, there's an account number for it.
Yeah.
You could peel that out.
Yeah.
Mhm.
This
See
is
what
a,
the-
it was a
Right.
one-time
Mhm.
revenue source.
Obviously, it's gone now.
You know, and I'm kind of on the fence about what kind of, I know we have to get into more of the detail, but to advise the commissioners on the salary budget and all, you know, is it gonna come down to, 'cause I've heard to the other task force about changing the employment, like get rid of elected officials. That was mentioned in the economic task force. And, I mean,
Aren't you
is this all?
There's
Aren't we
maybe-
mandated?
Yeah, I don't have a choice on that, but
Are they talking about combining with other counties or other positions?
No, like in the city.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
Like county manager.
Oh, you're talking about.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah, we haven't had that kind of discussion in this committee.
That doesn't give you like position.
No.
No, so have.
Yeah, you can't, like,
No,
Well, and then if you keep the elected official, then and hire a county manager, you know, there you go, you're increasing your budget again. I mean, if it's working well and I don't understand why have that big expense added to what you want to decrease.
Yeah, I think you'd have to show the cost analysis to say, how is this going to help by hiring a X number of dollar a year manager or any other position when the county is looking for savings.
That's like, I think any extra big employment position, and you have to, you know. I guess,
some private sector refer to that as administrative overhead.
well, I
But
think
like-
that Doug said, it would be a cost benefit analysis piece. So
Mm-hmm.
if, for example, you hired that county manager and you said that the county manager is gonna have to figure out how to streamline processes enough that they're paying for themselves.
Yes, right.
But, I mean, that might be a big leap, might not be, who knows?
You can gain efficiencies
Right,
in your process, that position might take itself.
right.
That's a hard straw man argument.
I think though, there's the other side here, and I'm not, but I think there's discussion going on. Should you elect your treasurer, your auditor, your register of deeds versus just hiring them? That discussion is out there. And I think, I don't know, Patty, if that's what you're making reference to. I wasn't thinking of the city administrator, but that there's looking at, should counties really in South Dakota, you party by party, or is it really a position? And I think that discussion is out there.
That's a statewide.
Yeah, that's a statewide that you would, instead of electing those officials,
Right.
you don't, no, you hire
We
them.
hire
You just hire somebody who run the department.
But in Yankton County, if we wanted to do that tomorrow, we couldn't.
No,
No,
no, but I'm just saying that the discussion, and he brought it up, that's
And
out
then
there.
have to be a state, then.
Yeah.
It kind of comes down to philosophy, you know, there's a member of the other task force, also a candidate for county office. And we had this discussion with Eugene, and she really believes he'd be better off hiring our positions rather than electing them. And I said, well, are you saying you want to take that out of the voters' hands? You don't trust the voters? He said, I don't trust the voters. Well, run on that.
Well,
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
and I'm
think-
just bringing it up, that is floating out there, that is
You're
not.
sure. Then my comment to that would also be then, how do you do your evaluation? If you're hired into that position as opposed to elected. So you don't have an HR person in the county. So is the commission going to do formal evaluations then for all of those
The
positions?
voters do the evaluation every 4 years.
Right. But if you're hired instead of elected, and I don't, maybe that's part of the discussion. I'm not in those conversations, and right now I don't need to be in those conversations.
Obviously, we'll elect a bad official once in a while, but generally the public sorts that out and places.
think the other thing, just a question, the state mandates in some, and I don't know if it's all the county, what your revenue is for. We raise the revenue for the documents. We allow the counties to do that. And I don't know if there's other departments out there, but that has been, when you say you have reported, you're escalating, you're up in your documents. We increased those fees because we heard that comment and that was supposed to go back to then the counties. That was an additional revenue. And I don't know, I can't remember what other register fees, it's just what comes in my mind.
That's what I certainly know about. Are you saying there might be possibilities in other
I
departments?
don't know, because I just know we had to pass legislation to raise that, and when the counties were, asking for some kind of revenue.
That was the last,
I don't know. It
that was the last time the legislature ever did anything, by the way.
I voted for
I
it.
know you did. And there's always license fees and
Yeah.
stuff like that are legislative.
So is that true? I don't know. I mean, is that right, that your fees are, that the legislature mandates? I don't know on that. Is
Oh,
that?
yeah, definitely.
Okay.
And it-
You have
I-
to do licenses.
the idea I
They
had
get so
was,
much and the county gets,
Okay, all right. So then that's the other thing that,
the county doesn't get it. They do.
The
They get
exception
some.
would be like planning and zoning, building permits.
there you go.
7, 8 years ago, they increased that quite a bit. That's just a commission decision. But you have to balance that with, are you gonna box people out of doing something if the fees go too high? But that is one office, and I don't know how much of the whole picture that is.
one that we tried last year, Gene, was to increase the transfer fee on the amount we collect per $1,000 of real estate sold. Right now it's $1. It's been $1 for 100 years. And I just thought, people are making so much on real estate sales these days that we increased that to $2 or $3. It's not going to be a real noticeable thing. You talk about the amount of dollars that are changing hands. And so we actually proved that at the county level and at the regional level. Then it got to the state convention and somebody didn't like it, shut it down before we could even vote on it as a body. I'd like to try that again. For Yankton County, that could be anywhere from 200 to 400,000 more a year.
Imagine if that was adjusted for inflation the last time.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be here.
Plus, our town is actually 50 years ago, it's $1.10, and they actually lowered it. It's easier to do the math.
Of course, real estate prices have gone up, so that dollar,
Well, you're right.
Yeah.
We're getting some benefit, obviously, but I'm just saying.
the
People are
house
making-
costs 20 grand and now it costs 200.
people are making such profit on real estate sales. I think that's a user fee that they could swallow.
Are there other, before we talk about the membership anymore, because this was just my throwing it out, but are there other buckets or areas we should be looking at? We talked about the ambulance, and maybe that one's a little bit deeper dive after we get through with some of this other work. And I want to be careful we're not either stretching people too thin or burying people and stretching this out too much.
So Doug, are you including in financial reporting budgets?
I would say yes, yep. And probably working with policy and procedure in terms of variance reporting. What does that look like?
But I have a question though. We got certain, okay, we're at ambulance, we're looking at the road. I don't want to present anything, or Catherine and I don't want to present anything that the department haven't had a chance to look at and say, yes, that's a valid financial position report. So I mean, that's something before, what we're planning on doing is doing a major just over the top, and then we'll start digging down. But we do have the right to call like the ambulance guy and say, can we meet with you? We've got this report. We just want to show you what it looks like. And
Yeah, from my perspective, yes, because
Is that right?
I think by not involving them creates that mistrust that we really don't want. Is there a way that you communicate now with all of the department leaders?
And we have more department head meetings occasionally.
Yeah.
And we talk to each other via email messages, Patty will send us something out, we're welcome to respond. There's something about the budget we need to get turned in. There's communication. I think we have pretty good communication.
What we do, I think,
I'm just wondering, would it be helpful if I don't know if you have anything scheduled, but if the chairs from the two committees came to say, hey, here's what we're doing, we want to make certain that you're included. I know we have you two, we have Paul, two commissioners here as well, but I know there are still rumblings from other department leaders who are saying, well, I'm not in that committee, and so, we don't want to have something fester and vote.
And I kind of told them that they're gonna get their seat at the table
Yeah.
when we're ready to visit. And they seem fine with that.
Okay.
So I think sooner than later though, and I don't know where you guys are at this point in time, but
We've got the budget spread, or the last 3 years or 4 years of financial in the budget spread. Now we're just looking at doing a month-to-month budget adjustment to show how that's gonna happen. She's having to
I'm
that
done
part.
with the revenue. I'm about a third of the way through the expenses. So Jolene divided it by 12, and now I'm tweaking it to say which ones make more sense to distribute based on historical averages. Because not everything does, some things, we can buy books. You don't know what month you're gonna, you just buy it for 12. That what month it happens.
Well, there's a little dollar, there's a little dollar.
Or then there's some high dollar things like, what is it, maybe child abuse stuff? Well, there's money out there, but it may or may not ever even happen. So that we're distributing, or I distributed by 12.
We're relieved, some of those things that you have no idea.
No. But, like revenues, for example, taxes are very easy to distribute based on historical averages.
Yes.
Right.
You're right. And you'll be right.
So we've done it pretty good. I think we've been working at it. And I think we'll have something at least on the top level, and then we can decide which department. I mean, I know, right, we hear department, the sheriff and the ambulance, the state's attorney, some of those higher ones, registered deeds, treasurers, that stuff I think will be more when we get the county comparisons, how we can change those things. But, the ones that have cost a lot. I'll be able to divide those departments up and probably come up with that, but I don't want to go show that to you guys unless those guys have a chance to.
Sure.
And I think
Sure.
whenever you're ready to talk to the sheriff or ambulance. Jeff
Probably.
Brown,
Patty, I think that you'd want to be sitting in on that too, wouldn't you?
And my guess, it's probably going to be the first part of July because she's gone for a couple of weeks and I'm gone for 3 weeks. So we'll get as much stuff as we can.
I'll have the budget sheet from the department by the end of May.
Okay.
Start compiling, and then I get the treasures for the commissioners there, but of all the, I copy all the pages and get them to them and you look at, their budgets.
And
So that would be June, they'll start, and then they'll start doing Zoom.
what Jolene and I talked about this afternoon when we met is, hopefully in the next 2-3 weeks, we're gonna show you what the budget looks like distributed by 12, and then what the same budget looks like if we distribute it
Cumulative.
based on
Sure.
a more historical average year. So we're going to show you month by month for for each individual month, and then how cumulative through the year. So you'll get an idea, mostly based on
And that summary part.
that summary
Yeah,
report.
summary
that we already
report.
showed.
Yeah, and I'd be interested, especially in reactions from commissioners and department leaders on that, because, and for one or the other, you may say, this really doesn't matter to me, but for the other party, it might. So we want to be,
And maybe
Flush that
when we've got that, maybe at that point, even before it comes to this, we take it to you guys and show it to you. And, get some feedback from you guys as to you guys, I mean Patty and John and Brian, to see, does this,
yeah, because we've got Brian
Is
and
this meaningful?
Paul, Patty, so we've got good representation. And I
What
would,
I've been doing is, I know you're talking about the years like 22 through 2025.
We're doing 23 to 26, yeah.
26.
Well, we're putting in the actual 26 when we get, as we go.
Okay, because I started doing something because I thought the commission would be interested. I started looking at all the department balances as far as percentage of budget spent each month. And then I'll give them a quarterly report. And I can give you one every month if you'd like, this committee, as far as how that very sharply reduced budget is functioning, performing. If you're interested.
But we can put ours together, should mirror to yours, because we're using the same information. I get a download from software and dump it in. So and see how it goes.
and while we do that as a starting point, make sure that we've got the same data, but I think that, I'd be interested in seeing.
Yeah, well, the first quarter ones here, actually, I've got a lot of the through April ones computed already because we paid all those bills. But if anybody's interested in a particular department, that's
We have until April 30th before we have a big chunk of money coming in, right? Patty?
Yeah, it'll be like the first. Yeah, they have to pay it by May 1st now.
So,
Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Friday.
Yeah, tomorrow will be a big day. And a couple days after, it takes a couple days for,
So they can be mailed, they can be postmarked May 1st and still get counted in May, or
well,
you get, is that deposited in May?
well, some of the banks, they automatically go.
Right,
And
right,
then
right.
she has to put it, and then we have ones that are dropped off, and if they're postmarked at the 31st or.
May for the order.
And, how soon after the month do you have bank statement for next month?
Steve Patty does that. And,
end of each month.
yeah. Because we have at the end of each month, the last week of commission meeting, we have a full cash report and that bank statement that commission approved.
Yeah, I've been tracking that for several years. Like, for instance, like I mentioned to the commissioners, March 31st is, and September 30th, there are two low points of the year. That's just before we get our property tax revenue. And so then the months of April and October are our two best months of the year. So we're at 4.4 at the end of March. I would expect we'll be over 6 with our April report. And then it'll go down again until September, you know.
Sure.
But what Catherine and I are doing is just trying to give you a different picture and see if, I mean, that's why the commission get it together, and if they say, no, we really, but what we're doing is we're finding that this is something that we as private sector, we keep saying, would like to see, and maybe that's something, you know, this is all just, like you say, we're not making any decisions, we're just showing you what could be done.
And it's also not an inference that what you're doing now is wrong.
Right.
So we want to make certain that everybody, and we recognize that as well as a
Yes.
committee and share that. So it just, how do we make things better? If it doesn't make it better, then there's probably no reason to make a change.
Great.
So financial reporting, policies, procedures, peer county comparisons, at least to start with.
I think our 2026 budgets aren't going to go up a whole lot because, like I said, there's no step increases. And as I understand it, we're probably going to work with 2.5% of the cost of living. So overall, we shouldn't see a lot of big increases unless there's some capital purchases I'm not aware of.
So when do you find out what your premiums, what do you budget for healthcare premiums, like 12% or something?
Estimation, I don't send that until the end of the
Right,
calendar year.
until that's until November.
Yeah, because I've already I called and asked him if it, and he does. Yeah. So,
We're still at a point though, aren't we, where he's only going to increase it maximum 5%, something like that?
and that's, you know, that's what all the departments that do this, and, you know, we can't,
Forecast.
No.
Yeah.
you know, it might be higher, it might be lower, you know. It's lower, we're all happy.
But is it contracted at 5% that they won't increase healthcare?
It was.
I don't know how long that lasts, Jolene. That was the original few years.
Yep.
Well, if you get a little bit of variance, you can get that. We don't want to increase.
So we'll know.
I'll send a note.
And it depends on how many claims and all that.
Right.
you know.
Sure. Okay. If we leave with those three, at least right now, I'm not, we've got points to follow up maybe in some of those. Composition, we started Jolene and Catherine, Patty. You guys have been working on financial reporting already. I put Tom and I on policies and procedures along with Paul and then Kathy, Sue and Brian. Is there anybody who has a desire or a need to move to one of the other subcommittees?
And not everybody's on that list here. So,
Well,
for example, Jean, are you on this?
do you have a preference?
I'd like to do, I'm data person, so I like the peer.
Fair counties. Okay, we'll add you there. Sorry about that, Gene. And we didn't put the commissioners on. John and I had talked about that. You're gonna ultimately see all of this stuff anyway, and but you're not assigned to financial reporting, but you were gonna have a conversation about it. This is
Yeah.
meaningful, so we just thought rather than have to put you on committee and get exposed to everything else anyway, give it a bit of a pass there, but department leaders don't have that prerogative. We need you. This, so is there anybody else I missed?
So does this group meet weekly or every 2 weeks?
Well, I think you should decide that within your subcommittee. When you have the information or how long it takes you to get information, some of it well in work. Yeah, just keep Patty involved with that. But my question is then is, we've talked about maybe this whole group meeting more frequently, but we also want to allow for time for the subcommittees to do their work. I don't want us to meet to say, well, we're waiting on this, we're waiting on that, or we should have this next week, because then that's not a good use of our time.
And then in May is going to be pretty rough.
Sure.
Fine, but
Then that first week.
she's gone 2 weeks. I leave May 31st for
I'm
3
gone.
weeks, so. Yeah. So we'll have a little bit of spread, but I need a
But
little
we're
bit of time.
doing things that's Jolene is gonna be working on some things while I'm gone, and I'll work on some things when she's gone.
Do you think for the time being, because budgeting does start in June, we schedule every 2 weeks, bi-weekly meetings for the group? And if you're on vacation, that's fine, then we can.
Just keep it moving.
In groups. I think if we do it every couple of weeks now, till June.
Okay. And that kind of keeps attention for us to keep things moving too, right, as opposed to just leaving it open-ended. So we'll meet in, Bill, can we meet every 2 weeks in this room? Do you think?
Yeah, I talked that over with Preston, the sheriff.
Okay.
And so he's reserved this every 2 weeks. He may have done it every week. I'm assuming we're only gonna record the whole group.
Yeah.
Your subcommittees don't need to be recorded. You just meet at your leisure.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. That's a good point.
Anyone stay at this time, right?
3:30, or do you want to move it back to 4? I just didn't know if we need another half-hour discussion or a little breakout discussions about what your subgroup is gonna do going forward.
I'm good with.
I'm good.
4 o'clock, and now we'll just focus on our report outs and questions, issues that come up in your subgroup discussions that you need clarity or direction from the group.
So is it the 12th, maybe the next one then?
Yes.
Well, Patty, can we or somebody from your office send out meeting planners? That was one of the requests that came up before you got here. Meeting planners, so that all the committee members get the same meeting planner that says, okay, our next meeting's 3:30, May 12th at the safety center.
4 o'clock.
Or 4 o'clock, sorry, thank you. I did make my note. Yeah.
I already put on my Teams and my Teams. I was like, we should just put them all on the Microsoft Teams and keep it uniform.
Cool. work through that. And the other item, Patty, before you got here that we talked about was getting on the commission agenda to approve the finance committee charter.
It's just a form, as we've already seen it.
Mhm.
Commissioners have already seen it. Formalized.
Here. On my way. Yeah, I'm trying to.
You want me at that meeting for any reason?
I would say it's
Yeah, I don't know if it's gonna be much of a thing, but, yeah.
it shouldn't be. This is true.
Been surprised before.
Thank you for that. What haven't we talked about that we need to? Perspective, anyone's perspective.
Thinking once the subcommittees get together and get going, that's gonna draw more attention, draw up more questions.
And we'll need your thoughts on whether there are points that we need to update the commission on a more formal basis as we start getting things back from the subcommittees. As opposed to saying, okay, well, we're gonna be done by September 12th or whatever, pick the date, and then we'll give you this, here comes the binder or whatever. So,
Should there be standing item on that or at least once a month that there's task force?
We could be.
We can just get a standing item on
Yeah,
every other meeting, once a month, yeah.
yeah, I think you should because
do
otherwise you just.
planning one time and do this committee the other time.
Yeah, we could do it, yeah.
Yeah.
Alternate the, updates.
Yeah.
That helps with the transparency piece. I think.
Mhm.
But I want to make certain we're not surprising the department heads as we do that, or commissioners for that matter. Thoughts?
First item.
Well, I've got some stuff before that, so it's been bigger.
Hell, we are.
That's all I had.
Brian, does the
Thanks,
county
everyone.
commission
Thanks, Bill.
keep a date?